How's it going? Welcome back to the channel. So we are on day 3 canoe build. Actually, might be a few extra days in there.
I was going to say, I don't know if you've put any extra days while I wasn't around. I'm not always out here, so.
No. If you're new to the channel, haven't seen what we're doing, or just to get you caught up to speed, we're building a strip canoe, and this is the book we're following. Building a Strip Canoe by Gilpatrick. He's a Mainer. So we've been using this, referencing this. I'll put a link in the description below. So since last time, let's see, the last video we finished the stations.
Yeah.
All right, we got all those in. So since that video,
You've ripped some cedar.
Well,
you've got some cedar strips.
We spent a day squaring the stations out.
Yeah.
Tying them all in together. So we put basically like some strapping along the top, and basically made sure every station was square to the strong back.
Right.
We secured our stems and shaped the ends of the stems.
Which was a little bit of a job. That was time consuming.
It was, because basically the stem has to come to a nice point here, and at some point in around this area, it transitions into more of a rounded, and then flatter to go with the transition of the canoe. And Gilpatrick explains in the book that it's not really a big deal on where that occurs here. Apparently he says there's got to be some really gross error in order for it to translate into the shape of the canoe. So you really got to do something pretty numb to mess it up. So we shaped those, got the stems secured in, all the stations square with a strong back and in line. And then we added tape along every station to make sure, so when we start laying the strips,
you get glue involved. Yeah, you don't want them sticking to the stations.
Yeah, if you'll end up gluing them to your wooden stations if you don't have some tape there, if you forget to do it. So we have to remember, we installed this strapping before we applied the tape. So we got to remember to put some tape
over,
on top when we take the strapping off.
Right.
Once we get 4 or 5 strips laid,
you can take the strapping off.
We can take this off. Everything will stay square at that point. So, and then, let's see, ripped a bunch of cedar. So went through all the cedar. Actually, I had to plane and joint the cedar. And so we did all that one day. And you're not very happy with the quality of the cedar. It's a bit naughty.
Yeah. Yeah. Usually you want the cedar, well, it's easier for you, Paul. You know, the longer strips. The clearer cedar you can get without knots is better.
Yeah. So I got the cedar locally milled. We'll do our best with it. I think. Yeah,
you can probably get.
We can pick around.
Just you may not have to be so fussy about having a knot here or there.
Definitely is better if you have clear.
Yeah, clear boards.
Cedar.
A lot of times, what the mills do is they'll hold out clear boards for people like you, and I'm sure they charge a premium rate for them too because they are clear.
So so just to make a note on the cedar, you're going to need roughly 70-75 board feet. For this size canoe. This is the 18-foot white guide canoe that's in the book. I think the canoe that they built in the book, they used about 62 board feet. I got roughly 75 board feet, which cost me just under $100 for all the cedar. So then I spent a good day cutting some strips. I still have a lot more cedar strips to cut.
Oh yeah, you do. You haven't, you got a lot of boards there.
And I made a jig to help cut the cedar strips. I don't like, so they're 1/4-inch cedar strips. And I got to have repeatability on those strips because I want all the strips to be the exact same size. So if you're cutting off the edge of your saw blade on the table saw, you constantly have to move the fence over every time, and it's hard to get it perfectly 1/4-inch or to get them all the same. So I want repeatability. So you're left with using the fence being 1/4-inch away from the saw blade, and I don't like cutting small strips.
You're not real comfortable with your fingers close to the...
No, with a 1/4-inch piece of wood next to the saw blade. So I made a jig.
A lot of people have lost fingers doing that.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting low on fingers I can lose, so I want to keep what I got.
Yeah.
So I made a jig that's basically a 4-inch wide piece of plywood that I'm using as kind of like a fake fence, but I'm basically using that fence or that fake fence until I get to the end of the board that I'm ripping, and then I'll push that 4-inch piece of plywood through with the board, so they'll all go through together. I keep my hand a long ways away from the fence or from the blade, and it's pretty comfortable.
Right.
And then I can basically set my table saw, leave it there, and just repeat cuts over and over and over. And then the other thing that we did was, so once we had our strips cut, is we're going to bead and cove them.
Yep.
Which
I didn't do on my canoe. And
no, it helps.
Neither canoe.
Better joints. It saves time on the back end.
Right.
You're going to spend the time on the front end of the back end.
Yeah.
So spending the extra time to bead and cove it. Basically, when I come up to transition around the curve of the canoe,
comes together.
They will articulate around each other,
yeah.
and there won't be any gaps. You can use, 2 flat strips, but you're going to be left with a bunch to fill.
Right.
You're going to have a bunch of gaps to fill.
Yeah.
So at the end of it, you're going to have a lot to fill and a lot more to sand. So this reduces that work on the end, but it's more work on the front end. So I'm using a 1/2 inch bead and cove bit that I got from Rockler, which I'll put the link in the description below. So that bit's a 1/4 inch radius, and I kind of messed up there. I should have got something a little smaller because it's really intended for 1/2 inch pieces of wood.
And you're dealing with a 1/4?
1/4 inch, and I forget the other sizes, but I probably should have got something a little smaller. But we can make it work. It'll be fine. And it's really the only place I could find an actual bead and cove bit, and it was specifically for canoe building. So I like using Freud bits. They're the red router bits and saw blades that you can get. I couldn't find one made by them. I'm sure you could have used a bit to come up with a bead and cove. So anyway, we did that, and then now we're going to put in our first strip, which we're actually going to use screws to hold this in place, because you want a good foundation for the first strip that's going to be put on, because it's going to establish the shear line of the canoe, and then we will build upon that. It's going to be cove side up. So we'll apply a strip of glue in the cove and then just start layering strips.
Yeah. I don't know what we're going to deal with the length of your strips. The longer the strips, it would seem the better.
Yeah. Oh, so that's the other thing. Yeah. So the length of the strips you have, it can really be any length. I know he had mentioned in the book that the only good cedar he could find one year was all 4-foot boards, and he built a canoe basically out of 4-foot strips.
Right.
I guess preferably I would like to have at least a strip that spans to 2 stations.
Right.
Right.
Right. 3 stations.
Well, 3 stations.
Yeah.
Also, your strips, the joints of your strips, we're going to angle them. So we're going to splice them together. You want to make sure those joints on those strips don't line up. So you want them all staggered.
Right.
Just so it doesn't look like you have a seam in the boat. And then try to eliminate as many knots as possible in it.
That might be difficult.
Well, where there's a will, there's a way.
Okay.
So yeah, lots of clamps, glue. We're going to use 9/16 inch staples.
And those all come out.
They all have to be pulled out at the end.
Yep.
So,
yeah, those are just temporary.
Yeah.
Just a temporary.
A lot of tedious work.
Yeah.
I'm doing the
because some people I talk to, when they and they ask you how and you say, well, you staple the strips to the stations, and they envision that those staples stay there.
No, you got to pull them all out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, first strip we'll use 1.25 inch screws, and then from there we'll just use staples going forward, unless we have any strips that give us a hard time, and
do what we have to get them to go in place.
Do whatever you have to do to get it to stay in place.
Yeah. Here, I'll give you your.
Well.
Oh, you're going to screw it.
We're going to screw the first one. Go right through your finger.
Won't hurt it. Now this is where it somewhat gets tricky, Paul.
I may want those to end on the station.
That's what I was thinking. You want to get this one on and see if you can clamp that?
You good there?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll be able to.
Yeah, clamp that. You're going to shave this down anyway when you put your gunnels on and get it all.
we got our starter strip in, and we did a second strip on top of the starter strip just to help align some of those joints, and then use clamps where needed. Everything looks pretty good. The shear line looks pretty good, doesn't it, Dad?
It does. It does.
Seems to be pretty. So we'll let that glue set up. I guess we'll repeat on the other side.
You want me to do that? You're getting a lot of glue in there, Mr. Man. Let's see how far we can go up. Can we go by that, Paul?
Oh yeah.
Because that's what we want to do. That'll help that joint again.
A lot of glue.
Well, I didn't think, but maybe it is.
There, we got the first few courses up.
Yep.
5 on this side and 2 on the other.
2 on the other.
So starting to.
So we get a long way to go.
Well, it's starting to take shape.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of clamps and lots of staples. So I guess we'll keep picking away at the strips, and it's all right. We'll keep plugging away.
Yeah.
Starting to take shape. Starting to look like a boat. I guess till next time, get outside. It's good for the soul. See ya.